Well, welcome back to Altenberg, Germany, round 3 of the FIL Luge World Cup. And the conditions here, a little bit changeable. The track here, well, it's always a bit changeable when you're coming down. Nobody quite gets a perfect ride down the Altenberg slope. Now, this is the start order for the first run. Joseph Ninnis will kick us off. We're going in reverse order of the Nations Cup positions. 17th, Andy Langenhan. He won the Nations Cup yesterday, a one-run race, and therefore qualifies in top spot for the Nations Cup men. Those who are seeded best over the previous 3 races, and that is some 14 athletes, well, they get the honor of being selected without having to go through the Nations Cup, and that's from Upper Yards all the way down to Stepan Fedorov. So Joseph Ninnis gets us started. We are quite a bit higher up the track than where the doubles started earlier.
Also auch hier wird es wieder so sein.
And the speeds, as you'll see, considerably higher as well as he rounds through the Amiga corner. And that's where we pass the double start. If you were watching earlier this morning, when Egger and Benneken managed to pilot themselves to yet another gold medal now at the Kreisel corner, 360 degrees, big 3-pressure corner. Handles that one well, Ninnis, and you can see how much more speed they have, that much higher on the corners, past the 90 degrees in 13. 54.50. And when you compare that to Roman Repolov's track record of 53.45, yes, it's a second or so off of that, but for the first man down the hill, I think that's a success. Julian von Schleinitz, next man to go down. He was somewhat disappointing, I think it's fair to say, in the race-off in the Nations Cup. Finishing down in 18th position. 2 men were scrubbed ahead of him, so he only just managed to sneak in with Ninnis into the race. Now von Schleinitz, who was disqualified from the opening race of the season, has been working on his own sled and perhaps has had to swap back to an old sled which wasn't really in the same prep as his new one, which clearly had some illegalities about it. And that's really is a bad way to start the season for someone who looks so promising in Innsbruck. Up and on to the Kreisel. Little tap off the exit. Oh, goodness me. And that's where things can go really wrong really quickly. Through 11.12. Stabilized again, but the speed will be pretty woeful, I imagine. 1:13.3. And Ninnis was a whole lot faster there. And von Schleinitz, who is a 2 times junior world champion, and suddenly was starting well as well out of the start house in Innsbruck, has suddenly become an also-ran. And I'm not entirely sure of the story, but it's all based around a disqualification in the first race of the season. Look at that. He was so high, so late there. Lucky to get off the first corner, the left-hand corner, corner 11, and then often you'll get off that just to be on so late onto 12 that you flip off the end. A little bit easier perhaps for these men on their loose sleds. They can slap their feet on the ice. If you're in a 4-man bobsleigh there and you start to get late, you're in a world of hurt. Now, Arturs Darznieks of Latvia takes to the hill, and he's been compared here to Joseph Ninnis, of course, the leader of the race at the moment. Through into the Amiga corner. 180 degrees, back on yourself. Into corner 9. Good exits, still in the lead, still green, 46 thousandths of a second. Nice flat line, he stays high late, and that can be good if he can harness the speed here. Round through 14, he's dropped behind Ninnis, but still it's touch and go, 121.5 kilometers per hour. 41 thousandths of a second, and over the finish line. They're just 800ths behind in the end, Darznieks. Not a brilliant run by his standards. Latvians come down here and train reasonably often, more so than most other nations bar the Germans. And of course they've got their own track in Zagulda. It's quite a unique track, Zagulda. This a bit more, dare I say it, harsh. On and off corners very quickly here. Big looping corners in Zagulda. As Maciej Kurowski of Poland takes to the hill.
Damit bisher die schlechteste Zeit. Mit Rückstand hier in den ersten.
1/10 of a second down, Kurowski. Joseph Ninnis has had a surprisingly good first run. It's hard to pick a flaw in Ninnis's slide, other than the fact that he starts a bit slow. Kurowski very low through 11.12. I would suggest his speed isn't brilliant. It yes, isn't absolutely brilliant. 121.7. So unlikely to catch Ninnis, and just slips further down in terms of time away from him. So 0.265 behind the Slovakian Joseph Ninnis. Remarkable. Now, with each slider, we, in theory, will see someone who is better at Altenberg. This is how they've qualified on Friday. And we're getting better and better, right the way up to Andy Langenhan, who is indeed very, very good at this track. The German, the experienced German. And then we start with Apperjods. We've got the likes of Johannes Ludwig, seeded and through. I could see him doing very well here, Ludwig, if he can keep his drive together. He always starts so fast. Rosaitis could do brilliantly here. The Latvian won his Junior World Championship here, so a track he obviously likes, as Sokovic takes to the track. Good start by Sokovic. Through the Amiga corner, corner 5. And these two big right-handers for the double start. Exit of 9, very low. Lacking in speed, perhaps. Wavy through Kreisel. Far too wavy. Coolly riding through 11.12, but the speed must be around 121, 122.4. Not quite as slow as I thought. Comes up near the woodwork in 16, and 0.263 behind. Sokovic, not a name we've seen during the World Cup slide before, so good to see Mateusz Sokovic getting up and having a go, and not doing too badly on his big race debut here on television. The entire Polish team actually are really upping their game. Jakub Similac of Slovakia. Another new name to the World Cup. A man who's come through the Nations Cup qualifier. So you really have to earn it to get up here and slide during the television World Cup, the televised World Cup, and well, that start there, 7.220. It's fractionally quicker than what Ninnis did. That tends to suggest it's not a particularly quick start. It was what Ninnis did down the bottom that was so smooth, just fairly faultless sliding. Wow, nice and high out of 9, but comes off just too steeply, slamming off the wall. Controls the wave well. Ooh, a little late off at 12, but sees him nicely onto 13. 119 kilometers per hour. He's 0.8 of a second down. Probably a second plus down by the end. Yes, indeed. 1:039. Doing well there at the start until the wall got clipped anyway. That's the kind of thing that will really play on your mind. Big hit there before Kreisel. Well, chose not to steer. Probably was the right decision to do, but in the end, over a second down. And for his debut on the World Cup, not quite so hot. Now, Maurins of Latvia, our next slider down the hill. Ninnis, you can see his next split time. He really was particularly good down the bottom, Ninnis. So even though Maurins is a 1/10 of a second up here, I wouldn't write Ninnis off just yet. Fastest start of anybody, though, Kristaps Maurins, and at the moment still holding off what Joseph Ninnis did. Aha, has it gone even? I believe it has done. You can tell by the color change. Now he's behind by just 0.018. If he tucks in, he could do this, but he doesn't. Legs akimbo through 16, and yep, punished for it. 0.12 behind. Well, little head shake there. He's not entirely happy. He goes behind Artis Dozniak. So it is Latvia second and third at the moment, with Joseph Ninnis, a somewhat surprise leader. Canadian Mitchell Malik now. Czech of the chin strap. Still plenty of time to hit this off the hill. 15 seconds to go. It's to cross that first timing beam about 5 meters away from the start there, the orange marking. And now he's underway properly. .205, so a middle of the pack start so far, but better than Ninnis did. Well, pretty high up there, but kept it flat around the Kreisel. Oof. Living dangerously through 11-12, but it looked great, but he's still behind. 0.199 behind, but the speed he's managed to achieve is excellent. 122 and change, and certainly doesn't lose any more through those final 2 corners. So 8 sliders down the hill. It'll be Andre Hyman of the Czech Republic down next. And we're going to start again for Malik. Nothing wrong with that. So he was losing it through the middle section. Somehow managed to tuck in and get some good aerodynamic form to achieve some of the best top-end speed so far. Andre Hyman then. That gives us an idea how good it was. Not particularly good, I'm afraid. Almost the slowest start so far by Hyman. And slower than Ninnis. Oh my goodness, he's gone over! And somehow manages to wangle his way back onto the sled perfectly. That's a bit of stunt driving there by Andre Hyman, who came out of Kreisel, flipped, and then had the presence of mind to somehow hang on to the sled and flip back on again. So he's going to get a downtime, that's for sure. I'm guessing it's going to be 5 or 6 seconds or more slower than the others. Well, it's, you know what, it's only 3.2 seconds behind. Remarkable. 1:16.8. We've seen people going slower than that at that point, and that just goes to show you the power of gravity. A crash very early on, or reasonably early on. He had enough time to get top-end speed back up again. Reasonable anyway. Let's have a look at this again. As he exits the Amiga, wow, he just came so late off of that. Quite a violent changeover, and he just flipped straight off his sled. Good for him for sucking up the pain and indeed the shock of coming off your sled. Not very nice. Slamming off a wall is never particularly nice, especially at those speeds. So well done there. That was a great recovery, albeit he's down in last place. Now the turn of Emanuel Ryder, the Italian.
Startet hier mit 7,144.
Cousin of Ryder, who is the lead man in the doubles for the Italians, Ryder and Rassner. 1/10 of a second up at the moment. Exit of 9, head back. That's what you want to see if you're a coach. Your man is confident, and a reasonably flat line, squeezes it off the end so that he gets a perfect exit. This is a very solid slide through 14. Yes, 121.9 kilometers per hour. Well, it's only 37 thousandths of a second. It's going to be tight. He loses another 16 thousandths. So by a mere 200ths of a second, Ryder is into first place. Shot under the sled at the start. Ryder bangs it off as hard as he can. He's no beast in the start house. Gets it going well enough that he's in first now. Chris Mazda of the USA. One of the men who has started pretty badly this season. Having to go through a Nations Cup qualifying race just to make it into the World Cup is, I'm sure, not how he imagined this season going at all. He's still behind at the moment. What's up with Mazda here? Exit of 9, down into 10. It's only 400ths of a second. Very much could catch this up in a couple of corners if he exits well. He does out of Kreisel through the 11-12 changeover. Everything's pretty good there. It's still slipping. His speed just isn't that great. And I don't know whether it's his sled. It's hard to imagine it's that, because the other American sleds are going down pretty well. And Well, it's a bit of a conundrum. What's up with the Chris Mazda? Every week. That's such a bummer, he says. So I don't think he's really got a solution to his problems. Just something's not quite right, not clicking when he's piloting that sled. So try and listen again.
Stuck. Yep, that's good.
Something's sticking, whatever that is. Perhaps the gloves in the ice at the start. Taylor Morris also had to qualify through the Nations Cup. Taylor digs in and gets into position very early on. Giving away a lot of time to rider, though. Goodness me. Over a tenth of a second behind already. Goes into the Amiga corner. Past the double start and through the 8-9 changeover. Little twist of the hips there to get him online for the Kreisel. Whoa! And bucking around. Not the right thing to do. And again, it's a pretty hairy ride through 11-12. Head back, though. It's a brave slide, 122.8. He's being rewarded by getting the best aerodynamics possible. His speed's excellent. He could get this on the line. He doesn't quite. Just 34 thousandths of a second in it. And that very small margin is actually enough to drop him down to third. Very close indeed here. Joseph Ninnis is ahead of him, and Emmanuel Ryder of Italy is in the lead as Nico Glacier prepares at the top of the track. Well, just a complete lack of power at the start there today for Taylor Morris. And yeah, a bit of a hair-raising moment through 11-12 as they nearly fell off the end of the corner.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Love you guys.
Well, he nearly fell off the corner as it is, and Mum and Dad wouldn't have enjoyed that one too much. Nico Glacier now. The Austrian will be followed by another Austrian in Reinhard Egger. Further on down the order, the top dog in Austria, Wolfgang Kindl, will be coming in about 13 sleds time. Kindl, of course, the reigning world champion at the moment. Now Nico Glacier passing the double start. He certainly looked good last weekend. Favourable conditions certainly favoured him. 46.289 the next split. 12 into 13, handles it well. The split comes out of 14. Still 81 thousandths down on Ryder. 121.8 was the speed. Ryder was quicker there, so doesn't manage to pull it all back. Pulls a wee bit back. Must have had a solid line through the last couple of corners, but Nico Glacier has to settle for fourth position. Despite there only being a very small gap between first and fourth, there's two men that have snuck in ahead of Glacier. But behind Emmanuel Ryder in the lead. Look at the start again. Just managed to adjust it so it starts to run to the left there at the end. It's hard to really do much adjustment in terms of steering at the start, but you just offset your power with your arms. You can do a little bit of adjustment. Indeed, your feet can work the Kufen as well. Now, that booty looks kind of open. The cameraman's picked up on it. It's obviously just split. And it is not going to shut, or Egger wouldn't be wearing it. So Reinhard Egger of Austria, a highly experienced pilot who had to qualify his way through the Nations Cup as well. It's a very similar story for the first 17 athletes we're seeing down the hill. Still behind, but now goes into the lead. Exit of 9. How commanding is that lead? Not very is the answer. Beautifully flat through the Kreisel. Through the negative G point out of 14, and in the lead. His speed is excellent, and hangs on to the lead as he crosses the finish line at 54.324. 54.324, and that's some 1600ths ahead of Ryder. They just tap the button there just to see whether they need a tech check or not. That's often when someone will be flagged up and disqualified if for some reason you have to go into that tech check and things don't quite measure up perfectly. They're very strict. Alexander Gobbets of Russia next to go down the hill. He was third in the Nations Cup behind Kavlenieks and Andy Langenhan yesterday. Well, it's a little uncomfortable in loading. Let's see how that affects his performance. Well, he's 6,000s up at the moment, so it looks like it hasn't really at all. No, he goes behind Reinhard Egger now at the Kreisel point. Exit of 9 down into Kreisel. Up and on, takes the steer nice and early. Maybe perhaps oversteers a touch and goes back down on the Kreisel. Oh my goodness me. Oh, very late into 13. That could have been a horrible crash that he just manages to avoid. Poof. He will be frozen stiff with fear. Domchenko, he's had some absolutely storming crashes in his time, and hopefully Gobbets is okay. Stayed on his sled, but you never know, you can get such a violent shake around. Oh my goodness me. He's looks like a man who's had a few on a Saturday afternoon. That's just the brain rattle he's had, I'm afraid. Wasn't so much there, though. He was too late out of 12. Takes a tap, goes in hideously late. Oh! Past the 90 degrees. And then again, his neck getting whipped around pretty violently. Not pleasant at all. You can easily get whiplash without ever coming off a sled. Taking to the hill is Inars Kavlenieks. Kavlenieks, good start, very good starter he is, and does it once again. Second quickest start we've seen of anybody so far today. Not a huge man though, therefore doesn't perhaps carry as much momentum as some of the guys. May well affect him here. Still, he's 600s up, rounds through the Kreisel. 11-12, a lot slicker than what we just saw by the Russian. Arrow straight, great speed. He's only got 600s, but I think he should hang on with that speed. Yes, still 600s in front. And we have a new leader, Inars Kavlenieks. It'll be Andy Langenhan, our next man down, and that'll finish off the Nations Cup men for today. But what a guy to have finished off the Nations Cup. Langenhan is truly a world-class pilot, taken a number of golds at World Cups. No, to be fair, not for a few years now, but you somehow feel that Andy Langenhan could pull out of the bag as and when. Well, is it that as and when moment right now? Andy Langenhan on home ice. Winner of the Nations Cup by some margin. Hasn't quite had top form in the last 3 races, therefore is not in the seeded group that qualifies automatically. But if he's won the Nations Cup, then he's going to be a big threat today. He's certainly in the lead here. He's got a fast start by 0.04 of a second, roughly. Nine into 10, arrow straight, still just 0.034 is advantage over Kavlenieks. Oh, a little late out of 13. Gets his head back. 1:22.6. The margin between him and Kavlenieks is tiny, but his speed should be good enough. Just Norbert Locke. Shot for that one, 0.036 in the lead then. And you know that downtime of 54.227 is going to take a few scalps of the seeded men, for sure, without doubt. Maybe 5 or 6 of them, I'd imagine. So we may well have seen a top 10, top 8 run there. You can always hit it off the top beautifully, Langenhan. Great athlete. So, Christos Apperjods, who has had success here before at a junior level. The Latvian, not normally the quickest of starters, and yeah, almost 1/10 of a second down on Andy Langenhan at the start. Certainly makes things pretty difficult. You imagine the resulting lack of momentum off of that start just means he's going to slip further and further behind before he can really let his driving do the work and catch up on speed with Langenhan. He's at such a disadvantage. 2/10. Will it stop there? Can he start to claw back now? (11-12) down into 13. Over the brow of the hill, 0.17. Yes, he is. He's making inroads, but he needs another 400 meters of ice to do it properly. 0.167, and he slots into 4th, I'm afraid. The start was poorer than normal. That's really what killed his chances of leading there. Exit of 9, so late there, flops off and ends up getting sent over to the right-hand wall. That's undoubtedly an error.
Okay.
Johannes Ludwig. Great out of the starts. Debatably good down the ice. But this is German ice. He should be on his most pleasurable patch of ice, as he knows this track very well indeed. But surprisingly, Ludwig does not outstart Langenhan. So he's not quite the start monster he once was, Ludwig. Passes the double start. Through corner 9, he's behind. Can he make any of this back? Yes, he does! 7 thousandths of a second. There'll be a lot of cheering down the bottom if Ludwig were to go ahead of Langenhan. Look how tight that is. 0.036 is almost nothing in it. 123.1 is good speed, though. Better than anybody else so far. So the lead extends, albeit by a tiny margin. Crowd enjoying all of the festivities. Very knowledgeable as well here in Altenberg, where local primary schools come and start sliding, aged 11, 12. And no doubt that's why the Germans are indeed so good at the sliding sports. It's just masses of young men and women starting very young, getting used to the speed and how to read the ice. So Rosaitis, well, he really is a very slow starter indeed. And we've talked about men being able to slide their way back into contention. He has absolutely no option. He is often so far behind others at the start. So he's almost 0.3 of a second down in the end. That's the punishment for his weak start. Look at that, though. I love his piloting. He's so wildly brave. Head back. Too wavy, though, through Kreisel. That was not perfect. 11.12. Still looking pretty solid and slick, though. The speed is key as to how much he'll pull back. 128. He's going to pull back some of that. That's for sure. 0.38 of a second down. No, he doesn't. Oh, well, my prediction thoroughly wrong there. His speed was good as well, almost 123 kilometers per hour. And disappointing for Rix Rosaitis, who looks a little lost himself. Well, nothing wrong with that. Seemed to fall off the end of 9 just a little bit. The wave here wasn't brilliant, it has to be said. He could have taken that first steer fractionally earlier, and he wouldn't have ended bobbing up and down the way he did. Now there's Felix Locke, who seems to have discovered the old Felix, as he said at the start of the season. Matteo Gruber of Italy. Next man to take to the hill, number 21 down. We have some 34. Well, he's giving it his best off the start. Yes, at least 4, if not 5, good hits off the ice, but it doesn't really reflect in a good start. Goodness me. He's almost 1,500s down at the start straight away on Johannes Ludwig. That's even slower than Rosaitis was at the start. And you know that's going to drop and drop for at least 5 or 6 corners. So flat around Kreisel. That's a lovely line. Just rolling his shoulders through 11.12. That's pretty slick too. So the woeful start is not matched by a woeful bottom end to the track, but the damage so badly done. Half a second down becomes 7/10 down. Ouch. Matteo Gruber just disappointing, very disappointing out of the start house. And I don't know whether there's an injury or whether he just didn't have any oomph in him today, but he did not perform at all there. Flopping a little bit off the end of 9. Head back though, always nice to see. Turnover for Austria next, and it's Armin Frauscher, the baby-faced assassin. He's really a pretty big man. Carries quite a lot of bulk on that frame as well. And down the bottom, that's when it really helps overcome the friction of ice and get some good top-end speed. Now, Frauscher is behind Ludwig, but then again, so's everybody. He's only behind by 0.04 of a second in the start, though. That's encouraging. Exits 9. Wonderfully straight. 0.122 behind. Now, will Ludwig be caught? Perhaps not by Frauscher. Quarter of a second down, 121.6. Ludwig doing 122s there, so probably going to lose more. 0.384 behind in the end. I'll wave to mum and dad at home. Much to be cleaned up there for the second run. Right now it's a Germany 1-2. Johannes Ludwig leads. Andy Langenhan is in second. And the third place spot currently sitting with Inars Kavlenieks, the Latvian. Now there's Austria's Wolfgang Kindl, the world champion, on his bib. That's his right to wear. He won it last year at Innsbruck on home ice, and just reminds us what an advantage it is to have home ice, and well, the Germans have it today. David Glacier. .084. Slower than Ludwig out of the start house. So that's a very big margin to give up. Out of Amiga, where we had the crash earlier. 2.7 into 8.9. .17 behind. Well, he's going to need speeds down the bottom somewhere. Who knows? In excess of 123, I think, if he's going to pull that back. And we'll get his speed clocked right there. 123, fastest we've seen so far. I did say in excess of 123 to pull back that full 0.16. Doesn't actually pull back anything in the end. Even gives up a couple of hundreds more. 0.18. Sitting in 5th position. Well, there's just a slew of Austrian and Latvian sliders who've qualified for today. It's almost quite amusing looking at the list of the top 15 from 3rd to 6th. It's such similar flags, aren't they? That 2 purple stripes to 2 red stripes. It almost looks like a big block of either Austrian or Latvian sliders there. And then from 10th all the way down to 14th, the same situation. An amazing 5 Latvians qualified for today. Now Tucker West of the USA gets underway. Great start from Tucker West. He really does live up to his built-up hype, and He's every bit the up-and-coming star as he passes the doubles start there. He's gone just behind Ludwig, but not by very much. Exit of 9. Oh, it started to slip a little bit, and he's very wavy through the Kreisel, so 1/10 of a second may go to 2/10 or more. Oof. Wild and into 13. Takes a big hit at the entrance of 14. And goodness, I'd like to see that one again. Luckily, he's wearing that helmet, because that could have, that would be like a punch from Mike Tyson, I think. In the end, he's 1.5 seconds down. Goodness, did he park it from 13 into 14? Wow. Seems okay. Walking okay.
Okay.
Oh, I thought we might get a little slow-mo replay there of that, but this is washed over to the next one. Maybe we'll get it later. That was a harsh hit. Goodness me, he's a tough guy, Tucker West. Now, Ralph Palek. A German who doesn't quite have the big start that the other Germans have. And gives up 600 straight away to Johannes Ludwig, the German who leads ahead of Andy Langenhans, the German in second. See if you can overcome this deficit sooner rather than later. Head back. That's some brave sliding there from Palek, but still hasn't done its job. Very flat through Kreisel. Something should go soon. He should start to catch if he's hitting these perfect lines through the corners. Yes, it does. 1:23.5. It looks so good and slick that it had to have great top end speed. But can he catch? Not quite is the answer. But good enough to put a smile on the old man's face, old Norbert Locke there. He hasn't had so much to smile about this morning in the doubles. It was more nervy looks until Eggert and Benneken came down and won. But right now, the Germans on German ice are doing what they do best, and that is slide successfully. They're in first, second, and third position, with Ludwig Palek in second now, and Langenhans bumped to third. Palek just avoiding the wall there with a near rub at the start. That would have certainly destroyed his chances of slotting into second there. Kevin Fischnaller, cousin of Dominic Fischnaller. And let's see what kind of start he can produce. It'll be quite a bit slower. Yes, a 1/10 of a second slower than Johannes Ludwig. Onto the Amiga corner. Exit of that is where we had the crash earlier. And crashing for Kevin Fischnaller, but his lack of momentum from the weak start, he's paying the price. Almost 2/10, make that a 1/4 of a second down into the Kreisel. Lovely flat line though. Can he pilot his way back into contention? A 1/4 of a second's too much to ask of anybody, but no, 1:22.5. The speed's decent. He might not lose much more. If he can keep it to within 1/3 of a second, he could go top 10. 3600s, 11th. So at the moment, Ludwig leads. Fischnaller has just slotted just outside the top 10 into 11th position. We got Roman Repelov of Russia, who was Mr. Gold last year, and he's had no success at all so far this season. He'll be desperate to do something here. Then Kindle, then Locke, so big names to come in the final 6. Felix Locke, Olympic champion, World Cup leader, no less. He'll be proud to have that bib back this season, as Roman Repolov had it for most of last season. Certainly ended with it as well. Overall World Cup champion. But he chooses not to wear that bib today. Probably so disgusted with his performances from the first 2 weekends that he's going back to basics here. Good start from Repolov. 0.029 behind the Germans. Booties pointing close together. This looks a bit more like the Repolov we know of last year. Repolov won here last year. In fact, all of the winners from this Altenberg track last season went on to win the overall World Cup. So who knows? Maybe it'll be an indicator again today. 11-12. Rides it well, but still behind. Now he's in the lead. He's ahead of Ludwig. 1:22.6. His speed is only just enough to hang on to that lead, though. It's 21 thousandths of a second. Oh, like a sprinter dipping for the line. He takes a low line around the final corner to try and shorten the track as much as possible. And Albert Demchenko's glory boy is back on form. Well, you knew it was inside him somewhere after last season's constant success. He couldn't have just gone bad overnight. But he does sit down in 19th position in the World Cup. And you consider he was so consistent last year. So great sliding from Repolov, and I think there'll be a certain amount of relief within the Russian camp that he's at least performed in one run of one World Cup. And if he does it in the second run, then a medal would certainly kickstart his Olympic campaign again. Now, the world champion, Wolfgang Kindl, who loves this kind of track. He isn't the world's best starter, but it's a nice, long, technical, tricky track. Oh, how unkindled, taking a little tap there before corner 3. Very unusual. And you can only just see it as well from the camera angle we were looking at, but definitely got kicked away from the wall. Perhaps just fiddling with his hands a little bit too much to get his position. So now he's going to have to roll the dice, get the head back through the Kreisel. He feels the pressure and steers as it comes on. Oh, fantastic through 12. Could he pull this back? It's 123 kilometers per hour, maybe. 123.1. Great speed. Quicker than Repolov, just. But runs out of ice to do any damage and pull it back. And Kindl joins the rather large pack of Austrian and Latvian flags between 5th and 9th and 14th and 18th. There's two big clusters. Well, it's good to see that he can come down in 6th position and be disappointed. Such is the ability of Wolfgang Kindl these days. He expects himself to be right up close to the best in the world. And on a track like this, where he's got time to pilot his way into contention, he's the one man who might make no mistakes. Well, the man who used to make no mistakes, but then he started to gain a horrible habit of making lots of them the last couple of seasons. Still, he's the World Cup leader now. He seems to have found his mojo. The double Olympic champion, 5 times world champion, who also takes a small rub off the left-hand wall there. Locke not as quick As Repelov out of the start house with that big bulk of his, he's well over 1.90 m and 105, 108 kilos of body mass. Head back, and it's building up momentum. Speed looks good. He's beautifully flat round the Kreisel. Exit of 12, spots it perfectly onto 13. This is a brilliant slide. 1:23.8, quicker than anybody. He's coming good in Olympic season again. Felix Locke, dad, still a little critical. Tough dad to please is Norbert Locke, but son smiling under the visor. He is 1400ths ahead of Repelov, 1400ths ahead of Ludwig, and 1800ths ahead of Palek. So the cluster behind him is some way away. Felix Locke on his day a few seasons ago, he wasn't just winning, he was absolutely annihilating the rest of the field, often by as much as 4, even 5 tenths, half a second in a 2-run race. Extraordinary. Oh, a little bit of stunt driving there from Felix, but he's the man in the lead. Great expressions from Felix Locke's dad, Norbert Locke, who's head of the German Federation. All of his men have come down. We still have 2 of the Russians and 1 Italian to go. Semen Pavlyuchenko, who's had a great season so far, and he's had a great slide so far. He's in the lead now. Locke's celebrations may be a little premature. We still have 1 run to go, so of course he's not bumping his fist in the air just yet. But he might not even lead at the halfway point, despite that very good slide. Pavlyuchenko is looking particularly slick here. How does he handle the Kreisel? Locke's big body weight, though, got incredible top-end speed. But Pavlyuchenko's still in the lead. The top-end speed will be registered just here. What is it? Oh, 1:22.5. That big hit there has just ruined Pavlyuchenko's chances of leading. He could go outside the top 6 or 7 if he's not careful. 4th. He's lucky to hang on to such a high position, actually, as that could have been a whole lot worse. Shame for Semen Pavlyuchenko. That could have been a leading run right there. It was good enough, and he really is. He's beating Wolfgang Kindl for the bravery stakes. His head is right back so often, just getting perfect form as he slices his way through the air. But you can go wrong very quickly when you do that. He's trying to be the Siberian tiger. He's trying to steal Demchenko's spot. Steal Demchenko's nickname, anyway. Dominik Fischnaller, who, like Roman Repelov, is languishing down in the bad half of the top 20 in the overall World Cup points. And today, I'm sure he needs to put something together that gets him up near the medals, just to start to get some momentum to his season. To be fair, he had a great second run at Eagles. Ooh, he got kicked away from corner 7. That wasn't brilliant. He's behind as well. And I have to say, his start was the 20th quickest start, which is surprising because Dominik Fischnaller is normally a top 5 starter. Maybe there's a bit of an injury crept in here. Haven't heard anything on the grapevine, but he is almost half a second down. This is looking exceptionally ordinary. That poor start has punished him all the way down. 21st position. Mr. Tartaglia there, the coach that you see in shot for the Italians. He's the strength and conditioning coach. He'll know exactly what's up with Dominik Fischnaller. Something's not right. the start here. This is where he really lost it. Fine through 11.12. With the tricky corners, he did his job, but when you start that slowly, you have such a deficit to try and make up. Makes it almost impossible. Now, Stefan Fedorov, last man down the hill here in Altenberg, run one of the men's World Cup number 3. Bit more aggression in that. 0.029, so that's the 15th fastest start of anybody. Fedorov not quite the starter that Roman Repelov is, or indeed Pavlyuchenko. Exeter 9. Little pull on the Kufen. Moves him over nicely to the left to enter Kreisel. That's it. Not great there. Little bit sideways through 11.12. You can see the ice getting kicked up, and his speed will suffer. 120.8. He's 0.4 and change down. Probably 0.67 down in the end. I'm guessing 0.6 it is. Demchenko's not a happy man. Still, he's got a man in second who is last year's overall World Cup champion. So things have at least started to return to a bit of normality. Pavlyuchenko. Oof, look at that. Just falls off the end of the corner 11, and then ends up having that sideways skid, and that's so damaging to your speed at that point. It's quite a flat section. You can hold your speed there, but there's not a lot of gravity to help increase and accelerate away from there. Now, Felix Locke, after run 1 by 0.14 of a second, it feels like we've turned back the hands of time, and the old Felix Locke has indeed returned. Repelov, though, in second position. Johannes Ludwig in third. Pavlyuchenko in fourth. Palak in fifth. The who's who of men's individual sliding, all up inside the top 5. Poised for what should be a fantastic battle. Bar Dominik Fischnaller down in 22nd, I'm afraid. The Altenberg track, which is playing host to round 3 of the FIL Luge World Cup. We are halfway through the men's race, and currently it's Felix Locke of Germany who leads, and this is the run that he did it with. Repelov at this point was in the lead. He'd gone a little bit earlier than Felix Locke, and it was good to see a bit of last year's Roman Repelov back and fighting for a top spot. But there was more of the old Felix Locke back, and that's a dangerous thing for the rest of the world. His start was almost there, not quite what it once was, but then piloting down the bottom, he looked very comfortable through the Kreisel, as flat as anyone had driven it. 11.12, handling the high speeds well. Big bulk of his helping gain tremendous high speed at that point, 123.8 kilometers per hour. That was the fastest anyone clocked down the bottom. 0.141. Dad, a tough critic, still not entirely happy. But I think the German camp will be very happy with that. Look at all those German flags there. First, third, fourth, and fifth position. So I'm at Semen Pavlyuchenko in fourth, and Repelov in second in the end. Pavlyuchenko coming after Locke. So Germany and Russia at the top. So we still have the second run to come, and if you stay tuned, that'll be coming up shortly. It's about a 20-minute break now before the start of the second run commences. So join me, Colin Bryce, for the action. Till then, bye-bye. So welcome back to the Wiesmann Luge World Cup, event number 3 of this season. The second run of the men's coming up in just a moment or two. And they have nearly 1,400 meters of ice to navigate their way down. 17 corners and some pretty treacherous speed as well. They have to deal with well over 120 kilometers per hour. Johannes Ludwig currently in third position. Roman Repelov, last year's World Cup champion, currently in the silver medal position. As for the leader after run 1, it is Felix Locke. The #1 German has found his form again and is back on top. 1,400's the difference between him and the rest of the world. As we look at the start list for the second run, we're going in reverse order here of their placings from run 1. They carry forward the advantage that they gained in terms of time from run 1, and then there's a whole slew of Latvian and Austrian flags until you get down to the bottom where it's all German and Russian inside the top 6. 4 German and 2 Russians. So it's got a fierce reputation as Altenberg. Its origins date back to the time when this was East Germany and pre-1988 and Calgary, and sometime in the early to mid-80s they built Altenberg, which was to represent a similar track to what these Germans believed Calgary was going to be built like. There you go for some random facts about this track, and it's nothing like Calgary. It's one of the most fierce tracks there is in the world. And the Lugers coming from right up high as we watch Andre Hyman coming down the hill. He started one of the first start draws of the morning, but starts first in the second run as he managed to crash and then get back on the sled, so he was the slowest of all 32. Coming down through 121.2 into the bottom heart shape before coming back up the hill to the finish line, and a 54.94 is a whole lot better than his 58-second first run, but as I said, he crashed in the first run. A good chance just to see that 11-12 changeover. That's one of the trickiest parts of the track, though. I'm pleased to say none of the men have actually crashed, as in crashed badly and not got back on the sled, because Andre Hyman crashed out of Amiga, which is corner 5, strangely enough, and managed to scramble his way back on through corner 6. He still managed to finish with speed in excess of 115 kilometers per hour, so he did very well actually to recover. As we watch Alexander Gobbets of Russia come down the hill, he's got a huge advantage, of course, over Hyman, which he'd really have to crash it to lose. Through the upper section, past the double start. Down from 9 into 10, that long straightaway. A place where you can really pick up some good speed. It's quite steep down the hill. Out of Kreisel, heading into the 11-12 labyrinth. Through 13, on to 14 and off. Little negative G-pop occurs there. 122.2. And a relaxed Gobbets manages to get some good top-end speed and a solid slide. A little bit slower than what Andre Hyman did in the second run, but his aggregate certainly high enough to hang on to the lead. through the Kreisel. This is a place where you first get a sense of serious G-forces on this track, and it's a corner where you have to cut the ice at just the right point, as the three pressures mean if you don't, you'll just wave right up and down on that corner, and it's a very high corner, and you can turn it into a very long corner. Julian von Schleinitz, double junior world champion, takes to the hill next. Chasing Gobbets, though I say chasing, he's got a lead, as you can see already from the first run, which is 37 hundredths of a second. Well, von Schleinitz is exactly the kind of athlete who could lay down a whopping second run. He's at his best brilliant, though a disqualification in the first World Cup of the season seems to have thrown him a bit, and whether it's a sled that he's been working on for a long time that he had to pull from competition. And that is one of the thoughts and theories as to why he suddenly got a lot slower. 0.561 the difference up on Gobbets, so he's extended his lead by a couple of tenths just. And Gobbets is happy with that. Well, for von Schleinitz, he's an engineer. He had been working very hard on his sled technology for this season, dedicating his entire master's degree towards the science behind his sled, and to have a disqualification in round one, and if it is a new sled, it must have thrown him a bit. Ronnie Ringuth having a blether with him there. Tucker West to the USA. Lovely little adjustment steer as he goes down. Well done. And his advantage, 0.11 over von Schleinitz as he comes down into the Omega corner. 180 degrees, round backing itself up the hill, and then down the hill again steeply. Through 9. Exit of, looking slick. Feet just bobbing up and down as he gets a little correction steer. How flat can he stay? Perfectly flat is the answer. And he wasn't too late either off of the Kreisel. This is fast, really fast going, I think. 123s perhaps. Whoa, only 120 kilometers per hour. Not as quick as I thought it was. Oh my goodness. Started to put his feet down over the finish line, and something wasn't quite right in the end there. Well, he looks angry with himself. Was that a loss of concentration, just putting his feet down onto the ice as he was crossing the finish line, just in a very poor position? This was great through Kreisel. Just bit into the first pressure and then smoothly around that huge corner. Similac of Slovakia, almost 2 tenths his advantage over von Schleinitz. Just over 1/10 of a second now. A little look over the brow of his chest to see where he's going. Keeps that 2 pressure Omega corner looking pretty smooth. Now he is losing to von Schleinitz. He only has 0.05 of a second. He was a little high there in the end of 9 and a little wavy. I imagine the next split will probably see Similac, yes, go behind von Schleinitz. Exit of 14. 120.8, so now 6 hundredths of a second behind. Tucker West was 22 thousandths behind. In the end, 0.1 of a second the difference. So third place for the relative newcomer Similac of Slovakia. So next out will be Maciej Kurowski. And we have Sokovic, who is also sliding for Poland. And interesting, he's ahead of Kurowski after run one. There's a battle ahead for who's going to make it into the team relay event for the Poles anyway. First up though, Theo Gruber of Italy, who has a very big advantage over von Schleinitz from run one. 0.8 of a second. The kind of margin you should never lose just by normal slow piloting. You really have to do something wrong to lose that kind of time. Past a double start through 8 and 9, and tried to come off a 9 too early, got sucked up again. To go a little bit sideways there to get it off the corner, but still 3/4 of a second ahead. That was a horrible, huge hit. World 4:11, and a great recovery from Gruber, and he's just done exactly what you have to do to lose 0.8 of a second lead, and that is absolutely park it out of a corner. Oh. Now von Schleinitz, you can see a little concern from everybody there. That was a pretty big hit for Theo Gruber to take. Hopefully we'll get another look at that again. That's got to hurt. Oof. Well, that was actually the more of the resulting slide. No real hit, just a lot of ice being cut as he slid down off the wall. So actually it was more just a scary moment than any kind of a thump, though there was a hit on the wall beforehand, so we didn't have a look at again, but never mind. Maciej Kurowski, he is almost a second up on von Schleinitz now. As von Schleinitz stays in the lead, each man will get a bigger and bigger margin on him. So I don't curse poor old Kurowski by saying he'd really have to do something stupid to throw it away, because it's always possible on this tricky, brutal Altenberg track. Passes the doubles start and through 8 into 9, drops down and out pretty smoothly. Little pull on the Kufen there. Keeps it flat, though it's a rather low line. Through 11.12. Fairly low again there. That tends to suggest slow speed, but we'll find out. 121.4. Well, it's a little slower than von Schleinitz, perhaps, but enough to hang on to most of that second lead that he had on von Schleinitz. Maciej Kurowski. Kurowski here onto the Kreisel, bit early with his steer. Nothing wrong with that. It was a good flat line. The guys checking their visors, just putting whatever lotion or potion they have. Sometimes it's a good old bit of spit on the inside of your visor to stop it fogging up. Anyone who rides a motorbike on a cold day knows that one. Sokovic. 44 thousandths of a second is the Poles' lead on the pole. Not entirely sure how many times I've had to say that before in World Cup racing, but right now it's a pole in the lead with a pole in second place. On to the big wall of the Kreisel. Oh, Sokovic showing his inexperience there and waving up and down the Kreisel. On to 13. Good exit of 14 though. 1:22.6. That's quicker than Kurowski managed. He should hang on to his lead now. Over the finish. Just over 0.2 of a second. He beats Kurowski, who handles it regally. Mateusz Pavel Sokovic, a bit of a new star for the Polish team. Depending on how the other sliders do, he might get close to being inside the top 20 as well. 34 sliders. I say 34 sliders. I in fact mean 32 sliders. So he's currently 8 men have gone down, and Sokovic is in the lead. Mitchell Malik is next, and then this Mazda of the USA, who is just having a pretty shocking season by his standards, goes after. Now Malik, his advantage over Sokovic is 19 thousandths of a second after the start. Was about 400ths. Well, Malik still clinging on to a lead. Exit of 9. Tiny correction steer to get him up and onto the Kreisel. Gets off smoothly and over on the right side as he entered 11. That's perfect. Into 13. Takes a bit of a wild line and his leg comes off his sled. He's now behind by just 27 thousandths of a second. 121.5 kilometers per hour. Could be a fraction quicker as he comes up the hill and over the finish line. 0.134 of a second. And that is behind Sokovic. Malik, not a happy bunny down the bottom. And this is a wave to the crowd. The Canadian certainly gave it some off the top of the hill. Chris Mazda now. The face says it all. Desperate for some success. This season has gone so poorly so far.
7.6, da hat doch ein bisschen was verloren.
Mazda down in 21st overall. He didn't make the Winterberg sprint, so he didn't get any points there. So yeah, 21st position. That really is a shocking place for what was America's #1 for many years. World Cup medal winner on several occasions. Exit of 9. I should say Kreisel through 12 into 13. Well, he's in the lead still. The next split, 121.5 kilometers per hour. 0.13 ahead, and he'll be happy just to take the win over Sokovic, who is a virtual no one on the World Cup, I'm afraid. And I don't mean any offense to Sokovic there. It's just we haven't seen him before. So Mazda just nipping in ahead of the new pole. And he's still got a sense of humor about it, or is able to hide his disappointment, which is somewhat admirable. Down through 12 there. I mean, he's doing everything right by the looks of things. Head back. I was hoping for a more intelligent comment out of Chris Mazda there, but we just get a kind of a dude signal. Anyway, Dominic Fischnaller. Now here is another superstar who is very far from being super. And his starts, what has happened to Dominic Fischnaller's starts? It's all over the place. Slow, in other words. 0.029. Wow. Chooses to go very high at the end of 9. Does it slingshot him well? Well, he's still in the lead ahead of Mazda, but doesn't necessarily say that much these days. On to corner 13. Through 14, he's low. 1/10 of a second, his advantage, 1:21.7. Similar speed to Mazda, so should hang on to the lead, 0.14. So Dominic Fischnaller, a winner of World Cups in the last couple of seasons. Someone who you expect to threat everywhere. Who actually finished in 6th position in Innsbruck as well, but then just completely, well, didn't quite bomb out, but just about in Winterberg. Didn't make the Winterberg sprint and now ends up down in 15th position in the overall rankings. Mr. Man Fedorov is our next man down the hill. The cameraman better be careful. His lens nearly got a mouthful of sled. Very close indeed. I'm sure he'd measured it out, but you never know when the real thing comes on. He might have just stretched all the more. Now through the Amiga corner, pulling down on that top Kufen to keep him low and flat. You can see the footwork happening up on the corners. That's the major weapon for steering. Through the Kreisel, plenty steering going on there to keep him flat. Whoa! Slides down off of 11 as he did in the first run. So all the ice getting kicked up there will have wiped some speed, top end speed off of him. So Fedorov was in the lead and still in the lead on the finish line. Just 24 thousandths of a second. Fedorov, Fischnaller, Mazda. That's how it rolls for top 3 at the moment. Ooh. Just sliding sideways off of 11 there we go. A big plume of what looks like smoke is in fact just little bits of ice all kicked up into the air as he does a not particularly good job of keeping his runners dead straight on. Kristaps Marins now. Good start of Marins. That looked like a good start anyway. His split 7.13. Yes, indeed. Second fastest start we've seen so far in the second run. Through 9. Exit of. Drifts towards the wall but avoids it. But the steer costs and the light has gone red. Through 12, exit off, spot on. Can he reel this back in? He was too low through 13, I think. Oh, but he is pulling it back a little bit. 0.034 behind Fedorov, and in the end remains behind Fedorov. Third position is what Kristaps Marins has slotted into Dominik Fischnaller in second. Stepan Fedorov is the current leader. Still have some 19 sleds to come. It'll be Riks Rosaitis up next. Another very talented Latvian, perhaps the most talented of all when it comes to just sheer sliding ability, but not great out of the starts, Riks Rosaitis. But a Junior World Championship winner right here in Altenberg. If only he had the power of a Felix Locke, he would be an unstoppable man, but he doesn't. Look at that. Oh, gosh, 0.13 behind the leader. Fedorov, after a pretty woeful start. Remember, he had 300s advantage at the start as well from the first run, so he lost best part of 2 tenths. But he does keep his head back. He does slide so well through tricky, dangerous corners. He seems to be able to read them at incredible high speed. Out of 14.21 down, 120 kilometers per hour. Well, I was hoping to see something spectacular there from this man, but it's not to be, as he's over the finish line in 6th position. And the Latvian trying his best there to give it a bit of a hit off the top. Just not really carrying the musculature of some of the other athletes, what they do naturally. He's going to have to try and put on in the gym. He's still a very young man. And of course, being able to read ice is more important than anything. Number 3, Arturs Dažnieks. Another Latvian takes to the hill. Dažnieks, on the other hand, a pretty solid starter. 7.16 seconds, so easily good enough to keep his lead that he's got over Fedorov, which is only about 0.04 of a second coming into this. Now it's only 14 thousandths of a second. Goodness. The starting power of Fedorov has certainly allowed him to reel in a lot of guys here. But maybe Dažnieks can drive his way back into contention. He's only a few thousandths, or I should say a few hundredths of a second behind the leader Fedorov. Into 14, exit of the speed, 120.4. He's 0.15 of a second down. You know, undoubtedly he'll slip further away, 0.2 of a second. You couldn't see with that speed how he could possibly jump ahead of the Russian there. And that's disappointing for Dažnieks, who was neither particularly fast in the starts or particularly quick down the bottom. Definitely not one to write home about. So that's his hit off the top. That's his 11-12 changeover, which actually looks pretty solid, if a little oversteered. So we are on to the man who sits in 17th position after run 1. It is Nico Glacier. Also David Glacier, cousins in the Austrian setup, both racing in men's singles. Now Nico Glacier, the start. Well, he's 7.143, it's pretty good. Pretty good indeed. And therefore, he carries on with quite an advantage over Fedorov from that first run, which is now 0.13. 1300ths of a second. Through the Kreisel, through the wall of umpire music. Out of 12. Up and on 13, nothing wrong with that. 0.147. Oh, his speed could do with being a fraction quicker, but his margin's big enough, surely. Yes, it is. 0.143. So Stefan Fedorov out of the leaders' enclosure. Glacier, the man to beat now. And next out, we will have Armin Frauscher. David Glacier, his cousin, sits in 10th position after run one. We are going to be going with the man in 16th position next. Kevin Fischnaller just going through the moves in his head. There's one where you read a lot of visualization. In fact, all of the sliding sports demand a huge amount of visualization, because it's not like Formula One where you can bash out a couple of hundred qualifying laps, warm-up laps. Here you get perhaps 9 runs during the 4 days that you have here before the race. And therefore, in those 9 runs, you must not only get the track practiced in your head, but also practice using different bits of kit to see what works best. And therefore, visualization is a huge part of the sliding sports. As Frauscher still in the lead by 25 thousandths of a second through the Kreisel. We're halfway down the track. Exit of Kreisel. Gets a bit of a slingshot effect there and rolls his shoulders to 11-12 rather nicely out of 14. 500ths of a second, the advantage. 121.8, probably enough to hang on. Yes, he does. 30 thousandths of a second is the difference, as right now it is Austria ahead of Austria. Fedorov of Russia in 3rd position. Slick sliding that from Armin Frauscher. Through the Kreisel again. He's a tall man. Booty's almost touching. Ronnie Ringer. He's an hilarious guy, that MC. Even if he's not speaking in your language, he somehow comes across as very, very funny. And if he can't quite speak a language, he knows enough. He can cross a few together and just about manage. He's one talented man. Now then, our next slider down the hill is Kevin Fischnaller. Just moments ago, he had his eyes shut, imagining the track. Now, is he able to get his head back and let this sled fly? His start not as good as Frauscher, and all of the good work, all of the lead from the first run has evaporated, and a lot more. 0.12 behind then. Kevin Fischnaller. Exit of 9. You see that visualization he was doing in the changer room is just allowing him to have his head back and slide down here with some peripheral vision. Oh, it looked like he almost clipped into 13, and really brave stuff here. The slide, 0.186 behind still, 121.8 the speed. Well, Frauscher was similar, so he gathers back in a couple of hundreds, but it's Frauscher who remains inside the leader's enclosure. Fischnaller for Italy slots into 3rd behind the 2 Austrians. Well, one assumes it's Kevin Fishneller's birthday that Ronnie is singing away down the bottom. Reinhard Egger imagining his way down the track. But it's the turn of Taylor Morris next. Currently ranked 14th after run one. Starting to get towards the business end of things now. Morris didn't have a particularly good slide all round. He's worth so much more. Let's see what his start's like compared to Frauscher. Pretty weak is your answer. That was the second slowest start we've seen today. Oh, and Morris goes over. His head takes a slap as well for corner 6. Scrambles his way back onto the sled bravely and head right back here. Well, he should think more about just getting down now rather than perfect aerodynamic form, but that's exactly what he's doing, and actually sliding pretty well there. 11-12, looks good. And he's in the right spot for 13 as well. Oh, can't even see his face out of corner 14. This is really brave stuff after what was a horrible start. A remarkable bottom half of the track, really, for what he went through in the top. And there was a combination of nerves and anger that just spawned a rather impressive second half of the track. But so much damage was done, of course. He slips way down the order. Is he actually in last position? No. Andre Hyman, who also did a similar thing, is in last. And look at that. Out of corner 5, the Kreisel took it into 6 and then just flipped. Almost as if he didn't actually think much about the steer that was necessary. How bizarre. Certainly woke him up.
Yeah, you're right. It does. But we move on to North America. Feeling really confident.
Joseph Ninnis now. What a cracking first run he had. First man off the top of the hill and put in an absolute blinder, which if he puts in a second good run, might just see him inside the top 10 for the first time in so long. It'll take a while to find out, if ever. Passes the double start. This is very impressive so far. The Slovakian, who no doubt comes and trains here quite a bit, is way too wavy there, though. It's not quite perfect. 11-12, a wee bit shaky as well. On to 14. Heads back. 122 kilometers per hour is pretty solid as well. He's 0.168 behind. Doubtfully he'll pull any of that or all of that back. He pulls a wee bit back on Frauscher. 1/10 of a second, the difference in the end between the two. Ninnis in third position with 12 men to go. So we have a top 15 finish for Ninnis anyway, which he should be pretty pleased about. And our next slider down the hill will be Emmanuel Ryder. And it'll be Apiods, Glacier, Egger inside the top 10. The big guns really begin with the top 6. Langenhan, Palek, Pavlichenko, Ludwig, Repelov, and Locke coming down last. Emmanuel Ryder. 0.061 his advantage over the leader of the race so far, and that is Armin Frauscher. Ryder's got that advantage from run 1. Still has a tiny advantage. He's not the best starter in the world, and his advantage just 1/100th of a second. That slipped as well. He's behind. So he's going to have to drive up a storm down the bottom to pull this back in. 69 thousandths of a second. Through 8 into 9. Steers it out of 9. (11.12) chooses a very low line between those. 0.19 behind Frauscher. Over the finish line. 54.67, and Frauscher gets to claim another scalp. If he gets 2 more of those, he'll be guaranteed inside the top 10, which would be quite something for Frauscher. (11.12) changeover. Very low, and that's one corner that can look entirely different depending on who slides it. Latvia's Christos Apiods. And it'll be Austria's David Glacier, Reinhard Egger, Kindle. They'll round out the Austrian assault on the medals. So underway then with Christos Apiods of Latvia. Trying to better the time of Armin Frauscher. And the advantage, about 1500s is what he was carrying. Only 900s now. As he rounds through the Amiga, up the hill, back down again straight away. Some great steep parts to this track. .041. That's all he's got over Frauscher. And Frauscher had a pretty mean end passage. .126. Apiods in the lead. He's not going to lose it with that speed either. .199. And we have to say goodbye to Armin Frauscher. He's enjoyed the limelight, no doubt, but it's Christos Apiods now, who is in first place. So we have just the top 10 to come. You have to remember that it's an honours system, and that means coming down last in the second run is the leader after the first run. David Glacier of Austria prepares and hits it as hard as he can out of the starts. Now chasing the time of Apiods, 7.164. So 63 thousandths of a second in the lead. .049. An advantage Glacier carries on Apiods. Out of Kreisel through the 11-12 changeover. Still in the lead, David Glacier. Hasn't really put a foot wrong. His speed 122.8. That's quicker than the Latvian as well. Surely he's going to hang on and maybe just extend that lead. Does not extend that lead, surprisingly, but he does hang on. So right now, Austria is first, third and fourth, with Latvia in second position. Down to 13. Head up a bit, as you'd expect, trying to spot where to enter. So we're on to some really big names now. Reinhard Egger, back-to-back Austrians, as Wolfgang Kindl, the world champion, then follows on from there. Inars Kavlenieks, and then Kavlenieks of Latvia, before the German and Russian best finish off this run. .013 is the lead. Egger over Glacier, who had a tremendous start. So not much at all. May well go turn red pretty soon. .050. Through the Kreisel. Wonderfully flat. Well, it was pretty tight at the last split. How is it at the next split? 121 plus kilometers per hour. 122.8. It's really quick. Egger will hang on. How much will he extend the lead? .089. So not a huge extension, but he's still going into first place at the moment, I might add. Well, I think it's fair enough to say that although Egger is a good German journeyman loser, he is no world beater, and if he ends up with a top 8, maybe a top 6 today, he's going to be pleased with that. Egger was once, of course, the #1 in Austrian luging. That is undoubtedly the world champ now, Wolfie Kindl. So much shorter than the other top individual men's sliders. Just an unusual shape, not as powerful in the gym either, but somehow he gets away with it. Let's see if his start is anywhere near the best. If it's inside the top 6 or 7, that would be really good for Wolfgang Kindl. 16th. No, touch of the old Wolfgang Kindl there. That's not good. And he's got that deficit already on Egger. Deficit that measures .049. Half a tenth of a second. Out of 9. Head back. Kindl starting to reel in Egger now, I'm sure. 11-12. 13, he goes high. But that can be very good at times. Just 22 thousandths of a second in it. And his speed, 123.4, is brilliant. Surely he does. Right on the line. And Egger can only hang his head for a few seconds there for the wise smile, knowing just how difficult it is to keep a man like Wolfgang Kindl, his compatriot, down. He's so competitive, so good at pulling it out right at the finals time split as well. He never has a great start, though his start was particularly weak today, but his piloting is magnificent. So a little bit of fist bumping for the Austrians, as right now they're holding pretty good positions in the race, with Wolfgang Kindl, of course, being the man on top, Egger in second, and more than pretty good, Glacier in third. So it's an Austrian sweep of the medals if it were to stay the same. Very unlikely, though, as 7 sliders to come. This man in 7th is Inars Kavlenieks. His advantage was substantial, still is fairly substantial. 0.8 of a second over Kindle. Oh, he's gone behind Kindle at the Kreisel. And horribly wavy lines as well. No way can he slide like that and expect to catch Kindle back again. This is not going to happen. Through 14. 0.14. 122.3 kilometers per hour. Reasonable speed, but not quite Wolfie Kindle speed. And Kavaniak's, ouch, drops to 5th in the end. Well, looks like not a top 10 at all for Kavaniak's, and that's pretty gutting, no doubt, for him. So we are down to our final 6 sliders now, as the current standings are Austria, 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 Latvia, Latvia, Austria, Austria. This is rather unusual.
Please don't talk. Please don't talk. And Kurgan.
Well, if you were just to look at the top 12 places in the world, it's only represented by 4 nations. I've never seen this before. There's 4 Germans still to come, 2 Russians. We have 5 Austrians in the current top 7 and 2 Latvians. So, yes, very strange indeed. And a little unfair on the rest of the world. Often the Italians, the Americans, the Canadians are in there battling for top slots. The Italians. That's how it's fallen today, as Andy Langenhan, the super Schnell starter, is well up. 0.16 up on Wolfie Kindle. Chooses a lowish line around 14, but look at the speed, 123.3. No way is he losing that to Kindle now. 1700s becomes 1900s, and a pretty dominant, powerful and consistent second run comes from Andy Langenhan. And that remains 5 left to come. That leaves just 5. You can see the slow motion, the flickering of the fluorescent light. It is one of the things the pilots just learn to deal with. Coming in and out of dark patches up and down the track. Sometimes it can be a whole lot worse at night. You can be bedazzled, if you like, by neon heaven. And the ice becomes almost too white and blinding, but these conditions, perhaps with a bit of shade, a bit of overcast weather, just helps you pilot it all the easier. Now Ralf Palek is coming down the hill. He's the 3rd best placed German after run number 1. There's Pavlichenko, Ludwig, Repelov and Locke ahead of him. And the super quick starter Langenhan has already taken the scalp of Palek as he rounds through Amiga. How far behind is Palek after what is an unexpectedly weak start compared to Langenhan? Through 8 into 9, exit of 9. Follows convention and swings back over to the left, up and on the Kreisel. 11-12. Great top-end speed by Ralf Palek, though. My goodness, could he pull off something special? He was 700s behind, 500s behind on the line. And Langenhan remains as the number 1, Palek in 2nd, and Wolfie Kindle is in there because he's been asked to, of course, by the floor manager down the bottom, because he's in 3rd place, and you never know if some of the, or all of the remaining sleds still to come could choke, and Kindle could bag the bronze yet. Not likely, and I wouldn't bet on it if I was a betting man, not even remotely. But it is possible. 4 sleds. 4 big names, though. Semen Pavlichenko. He could well have taken Felix Locke if he hadn't made some mistakes just going into quarter 13. He was absolutely flying, even off a... Oh, no, my goodness. This is the start of nightmares there for Pavlichenko. Yes, I agree with the MC. Whatever he's saying, it's exactly what I'm thinking. Not good at all. The word disaster can be overused, but that was verging on a disaster. Oh, look at this, though. Head right back. This is brave stuff to try and reel it back in. But even he can't reel in a second, Pavlichenko. So much damage done at the top, especially on Andy Langenhan. Through 13, low line. Nails it through 14, 121.5 kilometers per hour. Well, not bad speed to get up to, considering the shocking start. And down to 22nd position. Still, without a real shocking start, he's managed to better von Schleinitz, West, the likes of Morris. So big names. Oh, he just kicked it too hard. And then over to the other side, and whoa, a catalogue of errors for Pavlichenko, as we have 3 big names to come: Ludwig, Repelov, and the mighty Felix Locke to come. Felix Locke just having a moment to himself. Well, besides all of us watching at home as well, and the cameraman trying to have a moment to himself as he concentrates on what's ahead, and that's some 1,300 meters of fast, furious ice. Johannes Ludwig can spank it off the hill as quick as anybody in the starts. Let's see if he can work a bit of magic. He's down very early there. Maybe early is good as he tries to better Andy Langenhan. It was very good. It was still the 4th fastest start of anyone, and it looked well within himself there, Ludwig. Such is his athletic prowess, and not overcooking it in the starts. I think that's a good move. He's still 18 thousandths of a second up on Langenhan. Exit of 9. It's pretty much arrow straight. There's nothing in this at all, really. 6 thousandths of a second. He's behind Langenhan. How does he roll through 11-12? Reasonable. Pretty good through 13-14. The speed is so important. 120.9, and he's not in the game, I'm afraid. Well, Wolfie Kindle, he's still in the bronze medal position. Remarkable. Yes, he is. Langenhan in first, Palak in second, Kindle in third. And we've just seen Ludwig do a real shocker down the bottom. And of course, Pavlichenko did the shocker of shockers. And he too has slipped down to 23rd. So, could Roman Repelov mess things up? Or Felix Locke even as well? Repelov, I would suggest yes on current form. Felix Locke, a resounding no on current form, but you never know. There's Felix Locke watching on as the youngster from Russia, the overall World Cup champion last year. Winner here in Altenberg last season, gives it everything off the hill. That's a great start. Second quickest start of anybody through the Amiga. On the 6. So far, so good. 77 thousandths of a second up on the rest of the field who've gone so far. Make that nearly a tenth of a second. Head comes up as he spots exit of Kreisel through 11.12. He makes it look so easy, Repelov. 14.144 up, 123.4 kilometers per hour. He will see this home into the lead, surely. Yes, he does. .156 ahead of Andy Langenhan. Palek in third, and sadly poor Wolfie Kindle gets bumped out of the fun leaders enclosure and sent for his early shower. One slider to come. Repelov finds his mojo in Altenberg, but can he win back-to-back Altenberg races? That is not in his hands any longer. It's down to Felix Locke, who certainly knows how to win here in Altenberg. He's done it a few times. He's the World Cup leader. He's 2 times Olympic champion. Some 36 World Cup victories to his name. 5 world titles. He's only 28, believe it or not. And he's already had 2 seasons of not doing very well. He was such a protege. 7.15. Okay, 9th quickest start. Absolutely where he was in the first run as well. He was the 9th quickest there. It's the only area where you can pick fault with Felix Locke from the first run. 0.14 up on Roman Repelov. The Russian who went earlier. Exit of 9. That big bulky frame of Felix Locke. Particularly long. His toes touching there. Out of the Kreisel through 11.12. Just slices his way through like a master. 123.6. Top end speed, quicker than anyone. No way can he lose it now. He's over the finish line. 0.126. He doesn't make any headway on Repelov in the second run. In fact, Repelov is faster by a few hundredths of a second, but that does not matter. Felix Locke takes another victory, and an important one here in Altenberg in front of a German crowd on a very tricky track. Shows he has found his form again. He's out-piloting the rest of the world, albeit just in the 2 runs. Little cuddle off of Dad. Well done, he says. Those big, long, loping arms. And I think half of his strategy now is he's so big and strong is to take it a little bit easy at the start, get down, get tucked in, and let the driving do the talking, as it were. And with that 105 to perhaps 110 kilo bulk that he has, he certainly can afford to be down and early and let gravity do the work a little bit earlier than some of the smaller guys. Here's the results. Felix Locke takes the win. Repelov back on the podium. Good to see for the Russian, getting the silver. Andy Langenhan, always a favorite, getting the bronze. Ralph Palek just off. Wolfie Kindle in 5th position. Further on down the order, the notable or not so notable performances. The likes of Chris Mazda, only just sneaking into the top 20. Not great for the Russian. Tucker West, 2 in 27th. So day 1 draws to an end here in Altenberg, Germany. We've had the doubles and we've had the men's. German win in the doubles, and once again a German win in the men's individual. The World Cup leader Felix Locke looking very within himself in the second run. How casually was just loading down and into the sled with that 1500ths advantage from run 1. He could take his time and take things a little easy, and still grab the victory. These are the results. Felix Locke by some 0.12 ahead of Roman Repelov, who had a great second run. And Andy Langham, of course, getting the bronze. And there's the podium. It means that Felix Locke is way ahead by 100 points in the overall standings. Pavlichenko in second, Kindle in third in the overall World Cup standings. But things have a long way to go yet, and we still have plenty to go this weekend. The World Cup at Altenberg. We have the women's and the team relay tomorrow. Team relay 1300 Central European time. That's at midday in the UK. To see Wolfie and all of the fans here in Altenberg. Till then, bye-bye.